Welcome to this presentation from the SEND Transport Commissioning Programme. This is a copy of a presentation that was delivered to groups of providers at two events at the beginning of May 2017. This presentation is an exact copy of the presentation given at the events, and hopefully we can take you through the detail for anybody who wasn't able to join us or for recap purposes. My name is Lee Middleton. I am Senior Commissioning Manager for Children's Schools and Families, and I have been asked to lead a project to redesign the SEND transport system and service on behalf of the Council. I will cover a little bit more about that. There are no safety announcements. This was a slide for the events with those that attended. So I thought it was useful to touch on what is commissioning. I'm a commissioning manager. I come from a commissioning service. But I quite crucially don't sit within either the TCC, the Transport Coordination Centre, or the SEND service. So I am completely in the middle. I am neutral down in that sense. So I don't work for the SEND service who finance this SEN transport, and I don't work for the TCC who deliver it. So my role is to be very objective and look at the whole system from afresh. Commissioning is a process of delivering improvements and outcomes through reviewing services, looking at evidence, looking at data, and making informed decisions about where we want to change things, improve things. That may be around cost, it could be around processes, it could be around the quality of services, it may be the outcomes that we wish to achieve for children and young people. The objectives that we set for the events and for this presentation is to explain the purpose of the SEND Transport Commissioning Programme, gather your views on the current transport system, and lots of opinions on this, and then gather your ideas for making the future SEND transport system fit for purpose, and I'll cover some of that ground in a little while. So the purpose of the programme overall, we have 5 core goals. Number 1 is to develop independence. The 2014 SEND Act and all activity of the Council really for SEND children and young people, where appropriate, is aiming to boost and promote their independence, and this can be through transport. It can be in other aspects of their lives as well. And transport has a major role to play in supporting children and young people to be as independent as possible. At all my events, I say there's a caveat to this independence point, which is around where appropriate. So there are some children and young people who may be able to be trained and supported to walk to school. There are other children that will never be able to do that probably. So depending on the needs, depending on their abilities, and the circumstances that they have. And everybody's unique and different, and we have to respect that. But where possible, we should be promoting and developing independence. We aim to be improving our users' experience, and I define our users as our young children, young people, obviously. Actually, their parents and carers, our schools, our staff, our providers, and our members, elected members and councillors, etc., are all users of the service. They all have a stake in how the service works. So we want to improve that for everybody. Looking to make the system more efficient. Now, more efficient could be defined as cheaper, but it can also be defined as making the processes, the way it's run, the way it's organised, more efficient, more effective. But it'd be wrong of me to say, as for a provider event, that this isn't about. There's a major challenge, financial challenge the council has, and this slide is certainly about, or this point is certainly around improving cost efficiency. We're looking at how we can develop our providers. Our providers are the lifeblood of this service. They deliver it for us. They're fantastic. Good comments and good feedback. But we know there's more to do. We know there's more to do around quality, the types of providers we use, the way in which we support and develop our providers. We may want to use new types of providers in the future. We'll look at all options, and that's part of the project's work. And then the last one, I think, is probably the most important, but actually it's around designing the system in the future in collaboration with others. So this is designing a system with parents, carers, with young people, with our schools, with our providers, so that we build a system that is most effective, affordable, and successful going forward. And there's no doubt about that. So a question I've asked at all the events, whether it be parents and carers, our staff, or our providers, is simply, and how much do you think Surrey spends on SEN transport? And I normally ask the audience to give me a couple of numbers that they think. So just take a moment, think of a figure, and hold that in your thoughts. And in a second, I'll explain how much we do spend. So The current figure is approximately £27 million. Now, most people, when we ask, how much do you think we spend, but I've everything from 3 million to 20 million is probably about the average. Most people are shocked that it's 27 million. 27 million equates to £134,000 per school day. So if you're watching this video on a day that we will be transporting children and young people to school, today the County Council will have spent £134,000 in delivering that service. It's a colossal amount of money. It equates to just under £10,000 a child. And just as a comparison, our 22 special schools cost us £58 million. So and those special schools, that includes everything. It's the building, the heating, the lighting, it's the staff, it's the teachers, it's the trips and activities, it's the resources, the books, absolutely everything is that 58 million. So we spend about half of that on transport alone. Again, just getting children and young people to their place of education. And it would also, this is a slide I didn't present on the provider event, but I think it's important to highlight the challenges the County Council is having regarding, its general finances. Anybody missed the 15% referendum that the council was exploring? There are lots of things going on to try and reduce the spend of the council, because ultimately we are at a point where the demand of services and the amount of resource available is finite and is becoming more and more challenging. There's in the order of 90 to 100 million pounds worth of savings this financial year alone, and there's been hundreds of millions of pounds already cut from different departments and services in the last 5 years. So the County Councils get to a point now where actually things have got to change radically, and we've got to do things very differently, and we need to work with our providers and our suppliers to meet that challenge with us. It is a partnership, it is something we want to achieve together, but what we can't hide is that the amount of money in the system is less, and the system has to be delivered for that lower amount. So at the events, I made really clear that we want to develop a different approach with our providers. We really value our providers. We have over 150 that can work for us, I think 102 to deliver SEN transport currently. But actually, it's about improving the quality of the service that we receive and supply. And quality is about keeping the user at the heart of it. It's timeliness, it's the use of language, it's lots of things that are around improving that quality of service. And although brilliantly we had an 80% or so feedback from parents at the last survey, there's always more to do, and there's a lot more to do around quality, particularly as this will be a different type of service, I think, in the future, and therefore quality will play a much higher role. We need to improve the user's experience. Interestingly, our parents and carers have told us, and Ofsted sort of touched on this, transport is the most stressful and anxious component of a parent's life with an SEN child, particularly if they've once you've got your educational health and care plan or your statement of educational needs in place. That's the service, the schools are good, but then transport is the area that you rely on daily, and it's the area that's complicated, and it's the area that parents have told us they are most concerned about. And then we've got to improve value for money. We've got to reduce the cost of the service dramatically, and we've got to find new ways of delivering the service in a more effective, cost-effective way. And we want to work with our providers and our suppliers to support us in partnership to do that. So just to give you a snapshot of this transport system in March, we've transported 2,864 children to 279 locations from 2,500 or so postcodes. 200 children, young people are wheelchair users and are transported with specific vehicles, I guess. 792 children, young people have an escort, and they are supported by an escort. 106 children, young people travel solo, so they have a vehicle on their own because that's what their need defines. And we have about 1,100 contracts with you as suppliers to deliver this work, and we're using about 102 operators in total. So painting a picture here of a very busy, complex system. Every day there's 1,000 vehicles taking children and young people to and from home to school and back again. We understand that it's a big system. At the events, I posed this question: is Surrey County Council overcharged for home to school transport? And we've been doing a major review of contracts and cost and looking at all the nuances and different parts of the system. And our analysis, and this is a question I want you to think about, but our analysis is that we think around 60% of our routes cost us more than they should. We believe, we reviewed one borough in the county, and we reviewed routes that started and ended in that borough. It didn't go anywhere else; it just was in that borough. And if you use the Hackney rates and other methodology, this 394% overcharge is a figure that came out of that analysis. The timing, we know when we publish routes, the different times of year we publish routes can depend quite wildly on the prices. So if we published a route in April, it'll cost us one price. If we published it in August, it would cost us a lot more. And it's the same service, it's the same capacity, it's the same thing. You're still getting a chart from A to B and back again, but we know if we publish it in April, we'll get it much cheaper. It'll be much cheaper for us than if we publish it in August. And anecdotally, we've been told, well, yeah, but we know, in August your school starts in September, so you're desperate, and therefore we put the price up. We've been told this by suppliers. We've had that honesty over the years, and this causes us a real problem, because actually we are responsible for spending public money. This is council taxpayers' money, and we have a duty to make sure that it's spent fairly and evenly. And a service that's supplied in April should cost identically what it should be supplied in August. There should be no difference in that, but we know there's a dramatic difference in places. So we also know the council is held to ransom often around post-contract award. We have suppliers ring up and go, well, if you want me to carry on taking this child tomorrow, I want £30 a day more, or we're not going to do it. And that leaves the council in a scenario where we have children that we want to try and transport, but actually our suppliers are holding us to ransom. And this is how we have it. We know this happens. We have this. It's happened quite a lot, and this is utterly unacceptable and must cease. Absolutely urgently must stop. It's unacceptable. We also believe in the worst case scenarios there's some collusion between providers around bidding and around the cost and price, and there's no hard evidence of this, or we would have been referring it to authorities. But it's been made clear to us that there is some form of dialogue that takes place that we're not aware of, but actually this drives up cost. So the question I pose to you is Surrey County Council overcharged on homeschool transport? And hold that thought, because if we compare Surrey to our statistical neighbours, so our neighbouring borough and district, or neighbouring county, sorry, this table here shows you how Kent, Hampshire, and others compare. Kent transport more children, over 1,000 more, 1,300 children more than us, and are half the price. Hampshire transport, near enough the same as us, and again half the value. And Hampshire has many of the cost of living issues and the ruralness that Surrey has as well. So comparing those two is really challenging for us, because even if you look at all the others, we're about 50% more expensive. East Sussex is slightly more than others, but still a third cheaper than the county of Surrey. And we would expect, we know cost of living is high, we know there's congestion, we know that, so we would expect to be probably maybe at the top of this list, but we would never expect to have such a gap between everybody else and Surrey. And I think this is just clearer evidence of how the system in Surrey is unsuccessful and isn't working, and is expensive. So I asked the question, is the county being overcharged? And our conclusion is probably, absolutely no probably about it. Yes, we are, and that's unacceptable. So I want to take you through some of our thinking for the future, and these are our options that we're starting to explore, really. And I think looking at how we deliver this service in the future, there are a number of ways to do it. We can continue to purchase from our current market, our current providers. We can add some new ones, and we can do some support and training, and I guess that's our as-is situation, and ultimately I think that's probably our preference, that we want to use a diverse market, and we want to see that market thrive. Our other options would be to develop the current provider market to be more efficient. So how can we support you? This is a partnership, we want to work with our providers, but how do we do that to deliver a more efficient, and by that I mean cheaper, service that holds the same high quality, or if not higher quality service, but for less cost? We're looking at how we can increase the use of not-for-profit or providers that deliver in greater social value to us. And the Social Value Act is worth researching that, but the county is required to leverage social value from all its contracts over a certain value these days. So we're looking at how we can do that. And there are providers that are not for profit, and that offers better cost for the public. We've gone as far as exploring things like Uber Education, which is mostly based in America, and is using an Uber-based methodology. It's run by Uber. They are testing things, and it's where Uber would provide it, transport support for education. I have to say, it's not in Europe yet. I believe it will be here next year, but we're not looking. We do not want to use Uber Education, but certainly our collective members are going, well, Uber cost me this, and why is that so expensive? So it's an interesting comparison. Again, not something the county would explore today, but going forward, if we are unable to leverage the reductions we require, then that's a service that may be looked at a little more seriously. I guess our final option, and I put a gap here, it's actually the county council directly delivering the service in-house. We enter the market directly, we recruit our own drivers, we buy our own vehicles, and we deliver the service ourselves. We used to do this many years ago. There was we can do it again. I think I see this as the final option. If all else fails, we would do it ourselves. We want to see the market respond to our challenge and work with us and be in partnership with us, rather than needing to take over the service directly, because we recognise it's a complex system. But I want you to be really clear with you that actually we would and we will enter the market directly and deliver the service if we have to. We know the service delivered internally would be less cost than our current service costs, but we want to give the provider market the opportunity to respond to our new needs. One area that we've been working around cost is we've been developing something we're calling a transport calculator. So this is quite a sophisticated piece of kit now, and it's a calculator that works out what should a route cost us, and it's technical enough to include mileage and time and salaries and wear and tear and vehicle cleaning and dead legs and all sorts of factors that go into that, rural, urban, congestion. All these things are being factored into this calculator. And what we can now do is we can put in a route from A to B, and it'll give us a price band of what we believe we should be charged. So we built into this affair. We've been working with borough and districts and the taxi teams in there to help us shape this, make it fair. And they've been very clear with us of what was a reasonable cost and would be what would be overcharged. We've also built in a margin because we recognise that you're running businesses, companies have got to make a profit, ideally, so we know that we're not against that, but it's the scale of that margin is really important to us. So this calculator is now being used in shadow form. The TCC colleagues are using this. They'll be looking at they'll putting out the tenders. They'll be modelling what the costs should be when the tenders come back. We can compare and contrast the two, and actually, if the bids are coming in much higher or higher than the calculator says it should be, we may reject all bids and go back out to the market, and we will look at that. In the future, we will use this far more. At the moment, it's in shadow form because it's being tested. It's got to be analysed. We've got to check it's working and it's fair. And there's opportunity at the end of this for providers to get involved in helping to shape this. And certainly in our events, some providers were very happy to give us some of their costings and help us understand how they do things so that we can build that into the calculator and make it as smart as possible. But I think the calculator is an important piece of technology in terms of helping the council answer the question, are we being overcharged, or what is being overcharged? And we're happy to pay a very reasonable rate, but we're not happy to pay when we shouldn't. So in the live events, we actually got groups into two groups, and I pose these two questions. So, why is Surrey County Council being overcharged? And how could the council help providers reduce their costs? This is a partnership. We want to work with our providers. This is not about having a go at you. It is about supporting you and helping you adapt. And if there's things the county council can do in terms of reducing cost, we'd love to hear them, and we will take them on very seriously and take them on board. We had a lot of responses around both questions. What you're able to do is send any comments you have back to myself, and we'll provide you with an email address which you can send your comments to, and we would welcome those if you wish to answer these two questions, having not been able to make the live events. So the next part of the presentation is just to take you through some of our thinking around a few of our ideas. So the transport project as a whole has been broken down into these 4 themes. So improving that user experience, making that system more efficient, developing our providers, and developing independence. It closely matches the goals of the work. So in terms of improving the user's experience, these are some of the things that we're playing with. So we're looking at implementing personal transport plans. These are, each child have an A4 sheet of, an A4 report or sheet of paper that details their needs, what would help them travel more successfully, what would help them be more comfortable. And we want to be able to provide this to you as a suppliers and say, if this is the child you're going to move and take from A to B for us, how can you support this child as best you can? And it might be through training that you need to do, or it might be through, we can put headphones on, or music, or whatever it is. It'll be detailed for the first time in a very consistent format in a personal travel plan. We're implementing a parental transport guide, so this is going to be quite a tome. It's going to be quite a book, a booklet that explains every element of transport, what to expect when, who to expect, what from who, everything. Just absolutely everything will be in this transport book, and we're aiming to try and get that ready by September. We're going to be implementing a new portal, an online transport portal for parents, carers, and eventually schools. The portal's quite clever because it actually uses modern technology, and we'll be able to give parents information. It'll help them, they'll be able to let us know if they won't require transport in any day, so we can let providers know quicker. It will help them communicate and get information. It will provide them with a copy of the contract for their transport. It will provide them with the biographies of the drivers and the escorts, which we hold for the Blue Badge scheme. So the portal will be an important tool. We're currently piloting and testing the use of CCTV in a number of vehicles. This is simply two things. It's around safeguarding and addressing complaints. And actually, I think it's also around protecting our workforce, protecting you as suppliers. I've looked at all the complaints that have been referred to Children's Services in the last 2 years. There's about something in the order of 60 plus. And I've gone through most of those, if not all of them now actually. And when you look at the details, most of those are dealt with and there's nothing to substantiate any issue. So they're closed. I think there's only one out of all of those which was slightly serious. But what I have also read in those notes is there's drivers suspended from work for 4, 5, 6 weeks while an investigation takes place. And I'm really aware this is someone's livelihood, and this is not great. So actually what we're looking at doing is installing CCTV cameras, one that points, so double camera, so one at the front of the car and one into the car. So when we do get issues of often it's child A hurt child B, or driver did this, or so what have you, we can look at the footage very quickly within sort of 24 hours, and we can very quickly address any concerns that were raised. And if it's genuine, we can deal with it, but actually we can very quickly close down any unsubstantiated concerns. So we do see this as a support mechanism for drivers and suppliers. And we also see it as a great way of helping parents understand what is going on in the car, and that anxiety and stress is often caused by that. It's what parents have told us, so that's what causes them their stress. So actually being able to show them the footage, it's not live, so we'd have to get the memory cards, and we're learning about it a lot now, but we are working through that at the moment. And also looking at increased training for our providers. Our schools have told us that they already supply, training sessions for drivers and escorts, but the take-up is pretty poor. And actually, we will compel drivers and escorts in the future, I think, to undertake that training. We've had schools tell us that, Lee, I would offer dedicated training for on a specific child to a driver and an escort if it would help. And we've got some work to do to make sure we get that taken up. So looking at making the system more efficient, we are going to be introducing GPS technology. We are working with our software supplier, who will provide us with an app that will be on an Android phone, and that app will GPS track the vehicle, and it will also tag each child in and out. It will help us understand the road speeds, timings, lots of things that we get complaints behind the scenes. It'll enable us to address those much more efficiently and effectively, and it will also help us manage, understand what's going on in terms of any moment in time. One of the parts of our parental portal, I talked about our online transport portal, is we actually plan to have a map on there where parents can see where their child is in real time, every 30 seconds or so. So there'll be a ping on the map; they can see the journey the child's taking. We're going to be introducing new policies around mainstream and SEN transport going forward. We've just finished some engagement events with parents and carers around what the SEND elements of that may look like. And this will be a new way of working with parents and carers, and a clearer set of criteria around entitlement and what support is available when. We'll be improving our systems and our processes, and we're having a root and branch review of all of that, and we will redesign the whole thing. And we're looking to introduce an exceptions panel. And again, this is just a process part of the policy, but actually if a child, if a transport request comes in, or there are concerns regarding a child's transport, rather than we want to take a more personal approach and actually invite mum and dad in and the child or the teacher and have a conversation, say, right, what do we do next? Whereas at the moment we're using a very rigid process that doesn't always meet those needs effectively. So this is very much a policy process, but we're just keen to explain it to our providers too. So in developing our providers, we're looking to improve that and increase social value. This would be things like doing the training. It would be the pre-meets over the summer before the school term starts. Lots of things like that would be part of social value. We're implementing the calculator. We're developing a system, as I've just explained, for parents and carers to track and engage directly with ourselves and yourselves. And we're looking at the potential use of increasing community transport providers' reach in terms of transport. They are the not-for-profit component of our supply market today. And then the last one around developing independence. Well, we're going to be implementing independent travel training. This will support and train children to walk or get the bus or train to school directly. This will only be appropriate for a group of children, but it's about 450 of the 3,000, so there's a fair group, and we will be implementing that from September. The personal transport plan I touched on earlier is all about planning that independence for child when and where appropriate. Schools and colleges will be trained to deliver that independent training as well, and the new policy will all be will be embedded in that around supporting and developing that independence. So, just to give you some of our sort of timelines of this, we're looking at our new policy being in place by the end of August. The independent travel training has just actually slipped now. This will be probably in place by the end of June. The new transport assessment tool will be built into the education, health and care plan. That's underway at the moment. And the new travel plans, we aim to roll those out from September the 1st. So it'll take us a while to get all 3,000 back, but we aim to put those into place over the next 12 months. So now you'd normally have a question set, if you've got any questions for me, and unfortunately I'm here and you're not. So if you do have any questions about this, you're very welcome to send any comments you like to us, and I'll give you the email address at the end. At the event, we ran some questions for everybody. So what are your thoughts around improving the transport assistance service and the policies around that? Any questions you'd like us to take away and consider? How to increase children and young people's independence via transport? And what's working well now? And actually, when we did this work with parents and carers, the what's working well now was the largest list, which is brilliant. I mean, that's really good to know. So if you've got any comments on any of those 4 questions, we would really like to hear it. And you're welcome to write those down or roll the video back and have another look. But that's the end of our presentation for today. And I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to watch and listen. There's my email address. You're welcome to drop me a direct email, or you may email the overall project, which is send.transport@surreycc.gov.uk. So that's send.transport@surreycc.gov.uk. I'd like to reiterate that we want to work with our providers. We really value you. We want to support you, but we need to work with you to improve quality and reduce our costs quite substantially. We don't have them very long in order to achieve that, so we want to work with you urgently and swiftly, and we're looking for a response over this next planning period of next September. So all the routes will come out between now and September, and we are looking to see a reaction from the market in that window. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day.